Hello and welcome to episode 89 of the Blood Brothers podcast. Tonight I am flying solo. Rob and Sean are sadly unavailable, but we've got an amazing guest who will more than fill the space. So say hello to Melanie Blake.
Hello everyone, I'm definitely here to maximise capacity.
And thank you so much for coming. Now, you are here to talk about many things, but primarily your latest book, Guilty Women.
Correct.
I'm holding up to my screen.
Hold it up a bit slower and then people can see the blood dripping from the stiletto.
We'll put out... Oh, I'm going to It's a great cover. You must be so thrilled with the cover, first of all.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a little story about that cover to start off with. We had a little battle over that cover because they designed it with, obviously being a man, no offence, you may not know the difference, but they designed it with a court shoe. Do you know the difference between a court shoe and a stiletto?
Court shoe? No, I'm not going to guess.
So a court shoe is slightly shorter and isn't spiked. And I argued that no woman in a court shoe would ever kill anyone. So literally we had to argue it for ages, and then eventually it became a stiletto, and now it's become already a famous cover, but it was very nearly not that shoe. So it just shows you that even when you're, with a big publisher and you've had bestsellers and whatever, you still have to fight your ground on certain things, because there was no way the shoe that was on that cover originally was the shoe of a killer.
Absolutely, you've got to fight for it, and it is so striking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Please, can you tell the listeners about your latest book?
Yeah, so Guilty Women is part of a trilogy. The previous book was called Ruthless Women, which was a surprise hit in COVID. I had written a book a few years earlier called The Thunder Girls, which sold 30,000 copies, which everybody thought was a great success, but I kind of was a bit disappointed with, because I'd waited 20 years for it to be released, and I thought it was a great book, and it was turned into a play and it did really well, and so I was very disillusioned, and I thought I wouldn't write another one. And then the COVID pandemic came along and I had nothing else to do, so I wrote Ruthless Women, and it sold 250,000 copies in the UK. It went in at number 4 in the Sunday Times bestsellers list. I might add, it was turned down by 39 publishers first, who all said no one would want to read it. The 40th publisher was Head of Zeus, fabulous independent publisher. Absolutely could not have loved them more. And it was their first ever Sunday Times bestseller. It was in the bestsellers list for 8 weeks. It's been sold into 9 languages. I mean, huge mega hit. So as soon as that happened, everyone was gobsmacked, and they were like, oh, hang on, we need another Melanie Blake book. So I'd gone from nobody really cared to we need one immediately. And I was like, you mean as in soon? They were like, no, we need now. So, I literally had to write Guilty Women in 9 weeks. But the world had opened. So, COVID was kind of over, and I was no longer just sat in my house with nothing to do. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, because it had to be a standalone book, as we discussed just off air, which we'll talk about in a minute. If you hadn't read the previous one, and also satisfy readers that people had read the previous one. And I didn't know if that was in my capabilities. It was a real learning curve. And judging by the early reviews, it's worked. And the story is set on a small island off the Jersey coast, where there is an ailing soap opera that's been on air for 40 years now exactly. It's kind of like a Downton by the Sea. It's gentle, but it's run by misogynistic men who treat the women terribly, and the women are very vindictive and jealous and insecure, and if you lose your job on the show, you lose your job on the island. And as we've seen in modern media, soaps are dying, continuing series are dying, Neighbours just got axed, Hobby City's gone. So what this does is it takes you behind the scenes of what it really might be like for those that are desperate to stay on an island at any cost. And like I say, these women have lived on this island all their lives. So they'll kill to stay there, literally. And they do.
Amazing. Well, that's such a great hook, isn't it? And I mean, your background is in in that,
So,
isn't it?
yeah. Yeah.
And have you used any of the experiences that you've been through in your stories?
Oh God, absolutely. Every single bitch in there exists. Like literally every monstrous, ego-driven, stab you in the back with that bloodied stiletto, climb over your grave and like swim with your dead grandmother's body down a river is on your television. And I know her. Like they're not normal women. So soap actresses, you know, are superhuman. They have to produce 50, 60 hours worth of work a week. I mean, you know, an Oscar star might film for 6 weeks and then get lauded for whatever. Someone else is slogging away in a factory. They're not programmed like normal people. So, and then they're also really mega famous. They don't earn that much. So, I mean, your average soap star is probably on about £100,000 a year. Take away 20% for an agency, take away tax, take away lifestyle. You're probably looking at about 45,000. That's not a lot of money to have no anonymity. Yeah. And for people to be like constantly harassing you all the time. So they need to sort of fight to maintain more and more power in the show, to get more covers, to get more money, to get more privacy, so that they eventually can sort of stop mingling with the public and live in the bubble. So as I created the characters, I definitely drew on many women that I had represented, of which are on our screens tonight. I've just turned on a couple of episodes of a couple of shows of a woman that's definitely in there that I just watched. And I think that's why they're so real, because these characters are real. I mean, I have to say, I have not actually seen a murder myself, but I wouldn't be surprised.
And do any of the women that you represent know that you might have taken some of them for your characters?
Yeah, but what's so hilarious about that is that nobody recognises a monster in themselves. So when Ruthless Women, the previous book, came out, I was expecting all these women, like, and these are really famous women. I'm not, the ones I'm about to name, I'm not saying are bad women. I'm just naming famous women. The ones that I'm about to name, so like Stephanie Beacham, Beverly Callard, Claire King, you know, they're all big, big names.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I thought they're never going to speak to me ever again. This is a bread and butter. This is what they do. They're going to be horrified. They were tweeting the book. They were posting the book. They were going, read this book if you want to know what it's like and stuff. I was like, wow, this is, and it became this huge scandal that like all these soap actresses were going, this is what our life is like. So it was really interesting that, and soap actresses that I didn't know, and quite reclusive soap actresses. There's an actress called Kate Ford who plays Tracy Barlow in Coronation Street. She rarely does any press. She tweeted a picture of the book. Kim Marsh from Coronation Street had it on her bookshelf when she was doing a TV show. I mean, this book seems to be like the R2 book of soap. Just no one's ever talked about it before, but of course it is fictional.
Yeah. Ah, that's great. Lovely to have that support. And with your background, why did you decide you wanted to write a book?
Well, I didn't. That's the thing, is that I had written The Thunder Girls because I used to work at Top of the Pops when I was in my teens. And that's a story for another podcast. I mean, literally the stuff of dreams, like, you know, 19 years old, Madonna, Cher, Bon Jovi.
Wow.
I was going out with Michael for INXS. I mean, literally hanging out with Kylie and Madonna, Kylie and Danny. I mean, it's just, you couldn't make it up. If there weren't receipts, you wouldn't believe I was there. But what I learned was that I had witnessed a lot of bands reuniting, and that I realized that bands all hate each other. All of them. It doesn't matter who they are. They hate each other by the time they've been together about 2 or 3 years. And so I knew there was a story in it. So I wrote The Thunder Girls, book number 1. And nobody wanted to print it because all the women in it were in their 50s. And I was like, but they have to be in their 50s because it has to be like 30 years since they've seen each other. So I was 20 then. I had a great literary agent. I was with PFD. And so they believed in it. But every person said, look, we'll do it, but you've got to make them in their 20s or 30s. And I was like, well, then there'd be a teen group and it doesn't work. So I just put it away. And I didn't get that manuscript out until I was 38.
Wow. And then you mentioned before that the Guilty Women, Ruthless Women came out with Head of Zeus. And this one's with HarperCollins.
I've been poached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to talk about how that came about, or?
I can talk about everything. Yeah, I mean, literally, I don't care. It's like so. Like so, I always tell the truth, and I'm always honest about everything. I hated being at Harvard. I hated being at Pan Macmillan. Hated it. It was one of the biggest publishers in the world. They didn't want to hear what I had to say. They didn't want to listen to my voice. They didn't want to believe that I knew what I was doing. I couldn't understand why they'd signed me. They refused to release my book in hardback. And I said, look, if you don't release me in hardback, I'm doomed, because you're going to put me out in July, the whatever slot it is. All the hardbacks of the year have been out that year, and I'm not going to chart anywhere. And they actually said to me, no one's going to buy you in hardback. And it was just horrendous. It was really, truly horrendous. My own editor was absolutely lovely, but I never saw my editor. For some reason, my editor was moved off me, and I was handed to about 20 different people. I was just pushed from pillar to post. This is the thing of a ginormous publisher. So, and I didn't like the book. I've withdrawn that book from sale. It's no longer available. I bought the rights back. That's a different story for a different day. But and I basically sold 7,500 copies of that book in 2 days. Now, if that had been a hardback, I would have gone straight in at number one. But because they chose to release me in July the 28th, which was like the biggest week of the year for the entire year for all books, I charted at number 44, and I was like, that's it, as far as I'm concerned, it's over for us. So I left Pan Macmillan, and I immediately got a terrible reputation in the industry, because nobody leaves the publisher and buys their rights back. So of course, you're a woman, you're a bitch, and you're difficult, and you're a nightmare. But actually it was them. They just really, really, really didn't believe in me. And I didn't understand why they bothered to go through with it. Somewhere along the line between acquiring me and publishing me, someone somewhere decided that they didn't want me. So the irony was, I had a 2-book deal, and they wanted to go ahead with the second book. And I was like, you must be joking. I was like, I want out. Now, let me make it perfectly clear. In my old days as an agent, I worked with Pan Macmillan so many times. I did about 12 number ones, had the best experience ever. So I never saw it coming for me. Anyway, so I basically had a black mark on myself that I'd left this publisher. And I think that was one of the reasons why so many publishers turned me down, because they were all going, oh, she's difficult and she must be hard. So that's why I ended up with an independent. Now, Head of Zeus were very, very respected. They've since been bought by Bloomsbury and are now massive. And they have Area Fiction, which is huge, but they've never had a Sunday Times bestseller. And they initially, I mean, literally, seriously, I'll just tell you everything because I don't care. They initially had turned it down as well. And I went back to my agent and I researched Head of Zeus, and I said, they haven't read this book. I said, they haven't read it. They've just looked at my reputation and they've turned it down. I said, they haven't read it. I said, because that publisher's statement is about strong women from like the ages, from like the era of like Greek mythology, and like this book is full of women that could easily be like Medusas. And I was like, go back to them and say, we know you haven't read this book, right? Read this book, and if you don't want this book, by the time you read it, we'll leave you alone. They read it, and within 24 hours we had an offer. Yeah. So many, the lesson of that is, so many people do not read your books. So many rejections that you will get. Anyone that's listening to this, please don't take it personally, because they really, really, really rarely read your books.
And that's amazing advice, because we do have a lot of aspiring writers that do listen to this. So to hear that from someone so successful will be a massive thing.
Absolutely. You have to fight back. You literally have to fight back, like, and go, tell me what you didn't like about it. Show me, prove it to me. What was it? Because I don't read it. 9 times out of 10. There used to be a producer at ITV, because I've written a lot of scripts as well. It was a famous producer. He's no longer in work anymore. And he used to brag that his fridge tilted because behind it was full of unread scripts, which he used to say to people, oh no, that's not right for us. They never read them. You know, you pour out your blood, sweat and tears. It kills you to write a book. Read the bloody book.
Yeah.
So like, or at least read a third of it. And the thing is, with Ruthless Women and Guilty Women, very specific. You know, if you've read this book, you can tell straight away because it's got some very controversial themes. So I'm ready for a pop quiz at any time. I can tell if someone's read this book. And it was really great to then get them to read it and then get them to go, oh my God, we love it. Because I found a lot of that, I think because I'm working class and also because I write in what's essentially considered trashy fiction noir, which isn't really, because what I write about is very modern and very of the zeitgeist, but it's just a genre that's considered to be there, is that you just have to keep going, because when you're not connected, you haven't got an Uncle Tarquin in publishing. You didn't go to Eton. You're not somebody's nephew from Tatler. It's like chances are you're not going to get your book read. I mean, I tell you what drives me crazy, and I don't care if you're all listening because it's true, is if I see one more signing of former fiction editor of, former director editor of, you're just like, well, of course you're going to get a deal. You've been working in a publishing house for 30 years. It's like, so like, I'm one of the only true working class voices to have made it through certainly to the level that I've made. Now I've gone international with that book. There's Karen Woods in Manchester that's doing well independently, but I'm the only one that's not I have to use the word, sorry, no offense, Shuggy, but it's not a sob story. It's not a memoir about my heroin depression. It's not about my childhood abuse. It's not about my struggles of survival, all of which I've had many awful things happen to me in my life too. But like, it's a real novel about characters that transports you to a different world. God forbid she should be working class. I mean, it's a crime.
Yeah, and sort of picking up on what you said at the end there, taking you to a different world, the island. It's so vividly described, and even from a couple of little things. I mean, in Guilty Women, they're preparing for a sort of an award show.
The party, big party.
And it's just so beautifully described that you can really imagine it. Is it based on a real place, or?
Yes,
or
it is. It's based on Jersey. And funnily enough, after I wrote the first book, I was invited to join the Real Housewives of Jersey, which I declined because fame is not what I'm in it for. But it was really interesting. That meant I captured it really well. But I got some really good advice when I wrote the Thunder Girls. And because I was so disheartened to chart at 44, knowing that I sold enough books to be number one. It was a killer. I got to number 4 with Ruthless Women. I've still never had a number one. I've had number one Kindle, I've had number one Amazon, but I never had that Sunday Times number one yet. I had number 4. I was never going to be able to knock Richard Osman off number one, not unless I actually enacted the plot from his book and killed him. So I feel robbed still about the Thunder Girls. But when I was doing the interviews, there was a brilliant journalist, I think his name was Adrian Devoy, and he was working for the Mail on Sunday. Is it Live or Live supplement? And he said to me, what you need to write is a good old-fashioned bonk buster. And I said, nobody reads those anymore. And he said, exactly. Nobody has written one since Jackie Collins died 5 years earlier. No one's done one since he was like, 'cause there was no sex in Thunder Girls or anything. He was like, that's what you need, a really pacey. He said, and also make it international, like set it in different destinations. Ruthless Women goes to Paris. Guilty Women, the new one, goes to America, they go to Australia, they go to different locations, and those ingredients worked. I mean, literally, they did. Like, they made it an international appeal. Whereas Thunder Girls was very London, but it wasn't London, like Fleabag London. You've either got to be like, oh, cool, let's all have a shag in a telephone box that's red, and make it really, really, really. Oh, I'm trying to hail a black cab with my tights ripped. Hello, Mr. Cabby. Hello, darling. It's like, so you've either got to be really, really ridiculously London, or you've got to be like exotic. And those little ingredients he gave me definitely helped shape that. I mean, it's in 9 languages.
Yeah.
So, it's like, I can't even pronounce that book in loads of them. Not even possible.
And when it comes to writing the sort of raunchier scenes, is that something that is it challenging or is it enjoyable?
Well, again, I'll be completely honest here, right? We were in lockdown. I split up with my boyfriend. Sex was illegal. So, of course, I was going out of my mind, right, in the house. So I just channeled all my sexual memories that I knew of mine and my own into that book. And these characters took on, it really is a bonkathon, that second book, which ironically, the third book is not like that because, of course, the world was open and I had better things to do. So, and I was doing it. So therefore, those that do it don't write about it. Those that don't do it write about it. And but there were lots of scenes in there of there was a famous scene in book one, Ruthless Women, where there's one of the actresses is banging the driver with the limo across the road, and I actually saw that for real with a really famous actress with her car across 3 lanes with her leg out of the window, and I was like, we've got to get to the TV awards, hurry up. And so that is very, very realistic. But what happens between the women in book 3, and this is the one we're talking about tonight, Guilty Women, which you can read completely standalone, is that they are in peril in this book from the get-go. As you know, because you've read that opening scene, these women are in serious trouble. And women are hormonal. If there's, a bad news report tonight about something awful on the news, you ain't getting any. We're not in the mood. It's and so in book 1, they didn't know they were under attack. So they're at it left, right, and center, unaware what's coming. In book 2, they're aware what's coming, and sex is not really on their agenda. There are about 2 or 3 sex scenes, I think, in this book, but they're very specific to why they're there. And there's also a couple of quite horrific abuse scenes that very nearly didn't go in, which we had to fight very hard with the editorial team because they kept coming back going, these make us feel uncomfortable. I was like, yeah, that's kind of the point. That is what happens to certain women. They get in with the wrong men and then they control them. So it was definitely a gear shift of tone for Guilty Women. But again, bringing back to what you said, you have to excuse my sore throat. I've got builders in. They've been sanding the floor all day, so I sound like I've been smoking 8 a day. I do not smoke, listeners. When it was such a big hit, obviously it went to market to obviously who's going to buy me and who's going to take it to the biggest audience. And HarperCollins were the winners. And I chose HarperCollins because it was an all-female team, which was unheard of to me. And when I had been at my first publisher's, Pan, it was an all-male team. And I did find there was a very big difference between that. I mean, I love men, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in real life. And so do the women in my books. But for my books, which are essentially about women, so they can be read by men and women, but they really need to be handled by women.
And you were Phoebe Morgan is your editor, isn't she?
Absolutely, she is, and obviously she's the red hot editor, girl A, she's one of the big rising star editors. I couldn't believe they wanted me, to be honest, because I was because of course that book was a bonkbuster. We've since renamed it a blockbuster because bonkbuster was right for that time because it was the pandemic. People wanted escapism. Now it's a blockbuster novel, more like a big epic. And the new one is definitely much more like that. And I was really surprised. And then when I said to her, so the new one, is it going to be more crime? She was like, but we definitely want sex. And I was like, okay, so you do want sex in it? And she was like, oh yeah, people love to read about sex. So I was really surprised. Have you met Phoebe?
Yes. Yeah.
So, can you imagine her saying that?
No. She's so lovely, isn't she?
Right, exactly. So I was really surprised, and I was like, oh, okay, this is a really cool publishing house. And then they had this massive team of 12 women that all wrote these statements to me, saying why they wanted the book and why they wanted me. And I was just as an author, bearing in mind I'm dyslexic, I was told at school I would never write. It took me until I was 38 to get the courage to actually try and pursue writing again after I was rejected in my 20s, to find myself wanted, really, really wanted by all these different publishing houses. But there was a statement from each woman saying what they thought. It was the obvious choice that I was going to go with them. And I was really, really flattered. And I have had an amazing time there. But I also equally loved my time at Head of the Zeus. It was so collaborative and independent, gives you a lot of power.
Yeah. And how have you found the shift to a sort of more traditional, bigger publisher?
It's different, very, very different. There's a lot of people, lots of boards, and lots of like you go in for like office tours, and you're very aware that it's big, and that they have a lot of power, and there's a lot of voices, but they're very again, you know, I really don't know how to sugarcoat it. Really, they're very PC in a way. A big, large corporate company is a lot less PC than an indie. An indie will just be like, oh, you know that chapter in chapter 6 is shit. It's like, and you're like, oh, okay. And they're like, it's really shit compared to all the rest of your stuff. And you just rewrite it. And a massive publisher that's probably bound by millions of different like orders of how you treat authors would never say that to you. Right. They'll be like, chapter 6 could really, you know, maybe benefit from some rethinking.
Yeah.
And like you come out of a meeting thinking like, I don't know what you're telling me. It's like so in the end I had to say to them, look, just tell me which bits are shit and I'll rewrite them. And they looked at me, they were like, but nothing's shit. I was like, no, honestly, if it's shit, you can tell me. So it's like I'm fine with that. And I don't think they'd ever had that before either. So I definitely get a sense of, I was in their office the other day actually. And it's a bit like, oh God, how can I describe it? Everybody's very, very lovely and like corporate and very sort of like on mission. It's one great big statement. Everybody's working together. Whereas you walk into an indie and someone on like a third desk could be like, hey, I love your bag. Like, where's it from? It's like, you just don't get that down. It just doesn't happen. Like, you just don't talk life.
Yeah.
You just talk shop. So that took a little bit of getting used to. But in the end, you can see that they've got a vision for you, which is like a brand. Like they're looking at you as a brand. Like you're a commodity, but you're also a person. It's so hard to explain. It's just so different, so different.
At this stage, and we've got 2 people in the waiting room who've come to play a game. So if we'll let them in, and then
what kind of podcast is this?
When we spring surprises on the guests.
This is like chapter 6.
We'll let them in, we'll play the game, they'll go and we'll talk some more.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Names, please.
Caroline and Stephen.
Hi, Caroline. Hi, Stephen.
They should be appearing on screen now. Hello.
They're making grand entrances.
They are. Hello, Caroline. Stephen's upside down. Wow, that is a grand entrance.
I have no idea how to fix it either, to be honest.
I'm not even on there, so you're still winning. Because literally, I'm in a part of the house where they told me that I didn't need signal, so you've just got my photo.
Oh, fair enough.
I'll turn my phone upside down.
I'm going to stop the video, I think. That might be easier.
Oh, here we go. Now you're just a little man. I've got you now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for you 2 for coming in. You're here because we can't play the 1-star game on our own because that wouldn't work. Okay. So thank you so much for coming and joining in. The 1-star game, Melanie, if you haven't listened before, is we have...
I know what it is.
You know what it is, cool.
I have listened, yeah. But feel free to tell the audience.
They should be fine. So I have looked at someone who's given you a 1-star review and then looked at what else they have reviewed. And all you have to do, you 3, Stephen, you're cracking me up upside down. All you have to do is tell me whether you think they've gone for 1-star or 5-star.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I do this all the time, by the way. I'm a stalker of my reviewers.
So you might know these.
Oh, I love seeing what they've given like 5 stars to when they're giving me 1 stars. I love it.
So the first item is an alarm clock with blue LED numbers. Okay. 1-star or 5-star, Melanie?
5 star, the lights are too bright. So 1 star, the lights are too bright.
1 star, lights are too bright. Caroline, what are you saying?
I'm going to go for the opposite. I'm going to go 5.
You think 5 star? Lovely. Any reasons?
Just being contrary.
Absolutely fine. And Stephen, what are you going for?
I'm going 1 star, but they didn't like the colour of the lights, despite the fact it said lights on the description.
Lovely.
It said blue, sorry, on the description.
Okay.
Okay, it is a 1 star.
Okay, so 2 of us win.
2 of you win. A miniature searchlight, she called it. Much, much too bright for a bedroom clock. I tried putting an orange gel over the display, but it still lit up the whole room. In the end, I bought a nice little clock radio with a red display from Asda for £8 and moved this one to another room where it will be useful.
Can I just chip in and go, did I win or did I win? I won.
Won.
I am a stalker of reviewers. So I stalk them. When I get bad reviews, so guys, hope you don't mind me just telling the story while we're all in the room together.
Yeah.
So my books are either 5 star, 1 star. There is no in between. They either want to buy 1 million copies or they want me dead. So literally, I often look at the 1 star and I'm like, if you hate me so much, what do you like? So I go and look and I spot, and that's exactly how I could read that person would be like, the light is too bright, even though it was probably advertised.
And it definitely was advertised. I looked at it. Yeah. So
yeah.
That's who you're dealing with. The next item, we'll do 2. The next item is Nadia Hussein's Time to Eat cookbook.
Okay.
Should we go in reverse order this time so they don't have... You might know. Steve.
Well, how do we do that then? Just straight off the title?
Yeah, so now from just her cookbook, what do you think? 1 star or 5 star?
5 star.
5 star, Stephen. Okay. Any reasons?
Just feels like a book with pictures. They're going to go for 5 star.
Yeah. Caroline?
I think they're on a roll of 1 star, so I'm going to go for 1.
Okay. 1 star. And Melanie?
I'm going to go for 4 stars because I'm going to go for the fact that they liked it, but it was a lot of content they'd already seen, but possibly it would have been higher rating had there have been more something, which was probably said that wasn't in it in the first place.
Brilliantly articulated. It is, in fact, a 1 star.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, Caroline, you're our winner.
Caroline
wins. The person said, bought this book after watching a few episodes of Saturday Kitchen. I think the programmers choose the best recipes, as I was disappointed with the others. Made the chicken marinara, which was nice, but the frozen version didn't cook well after thawing. Made the fish and chips, but it didn't look like the picture.
Well, has she reviewed my books? She's probably given me a 1 star.
She was one of your 1 star.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Does anything ever look like the picture? I used to work in food prep, and literally I did about 6 or 7 food cookbooks when I was an agent, and like nothing ever looked like the picture. I mean, we used to pump like petroleum jelly into those things, take those pictures. So if it looks like the picture, don't ever eat it.
Yeah. Stephen and Caroline, you've been great, and thank you so much for coming in. Otherwise, the game would not have worked at all. Before you leave, would you like to tell us what you're reading?
Ooh.
Caroline, do you want to start us off?
I am reading 2 things at the moment. I'm just looking at what the titles are. I'm reading The Dark Flood by Deanne Mayer.
Nice.
And then just to balance it out with a bit of intellectualness, Chainsaw Man 3.
Oh, lovely. Love.
Great title.
Love.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you. And Stephen, what are you reading?
I am reading Far From the Tree by Blood Brothers podcast host Rob Parker. I'm about 90 pages in and I'm absolutely loving it. I think
the man can write, can't he?
Yeah, it's the first one of his I've read and I'm really enjoying it.
Plant.
If only it was mine.
To be honest, I think the only reason Chris invited me on is because my mum's been saying nice things about his Stonebridge series. So
you see this. I think we need another round. See if Chris can like even scores out here, because like we need like one more. I think we should have one more round of 1 star.
I've only got 2 items, but I can make one up.
Just make one up.
While I find one, Melanie, what are you reading at the minute?
So I just read, weirdly, do you remember T'Pau?
Yeah.
So I just read Carol Decker's autobiography from T'Pau because I love an autobiography. And I wrote, as I mentioned earlier, I wrote a book about a girl group that get back together after 30 years and hate each other. And basically in this book, she really details the acrimoniousness between the band at the height of their split. And I messaged her and said, oh, wow, it was literally like reading, because obviously we're on Twitter, so, you know, the world's connected. And I was like, it was literally like reading what I'd written. And she messaged me back going, I read The Thunder Girls and it was exactly as you described it. So it was really weird. It was like life imitates art. It was like, I mean, it's a really horrific read. She's very honest and very open. And so I read that. And I'm also reading Sharon Gless from Cagney and Lacey's autobiography, which is called Apparently There Were Complaints, which is also pretty bad for herself. So I love women that obviously I write about women. So I love an autobiography because obviously I write fiction. So it's nice for me to step out of the genre. And I love women that are not afraid to describe themselves as imperfect. So they're my two recent reads.
Excellent. They sound really interesting. Right, one last 1 star, 5 star.
Okay.
Okay.
Come on, Chris.
It's a Samsung 105-inch 4K Ultra TV. 1 star or 5 star?
I feel I need more detail.
It's a curved one. It's 3D LED. It costs £120,000.
What?
Yeah, or dollars, so slightly less, but still loads.
Okay, I'm going to go rogue and go 5 stars.
5 star, okay. Caroline?
Yeah. I'm going for 1. It's got to be 1 with that, hasn't it? They're going to complain about it being curved or...
It's so expensive, though.
Yeah, it is. Stephen?
I'm going to go 1 star because I don't feel like at that money anything can be valued for that money.
Okay. Well, Melanie ties it up, 5 star. I was able to purchase this amazing television with a loan, 30-year fixed rate, and only 3.5% down. This is hands down the best decision I've ever made, and the box it comes in is incredibly roomy too, which is a huge bonus because I live in it now.
Yeah. See, now, are you going to reveal the fact that you are actually selling these, and we are now going to be given links? Can I, before the guys go, let me tell you a great story about reviews. So whenever anyone leaves a review for my book, and yes, I do read them all, I take them, you know, with a pinch of salt, because it's fine. I understand. It's okay. But there was one review very recently, and it was a picture of my book in a bin, right, with 1 star. And it said, absolute pile of rubbish. This person wouldn't know anything about the industry. And you've only got to Google me to realise that I've worked in television and music for 30 years. I mean, if it was a book about a nunnery, fair enough. It's like so, but like so I'd done it. So I basically stalked this lady down until I found her on Facebook. Yes, I am that author. And I sent her a message saying, hi, just as there, I found your review and I saw the picture of the book in a bin and I'd like to offer you a full refund if you send me your PayPal details, because obviously I would really hate for you to have wasted your money so badly. P.S. I thought it was really bad that you put it in a bin. Could you please send it to a charity shop? Anyway, she messaged me back saying that she was really, really, really sorry. She was having a really bad day and that she'd written some books herself that had done really badly, and she apologised. And then she reread the book and gave it a 4-star review. So it was really interesting to think that actually sometimes, again, just for anyone else that's out there that's publishing or self-publishing, whatever, like, you know, you get that review, don't believe it. It may not be about you. That one particular, this lady and I are now in contact, and I mean, I will let her out of the cupboard downstairs in a couple of hours. But you know, she changed her mind. Like, she wrote something that wasn't about me and projected it onto my book. So if you write something and you put it out there and someone says something bad, you know, do go digging, because sometimes they will change their minds.
There you go. A nice message.
Chris, that feels like Stonebridge 9.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The reviewer that got tracked down. And went,
I need to get into this heavy selling. I appreciate it. I need to get into it.
You'll get a cut of it, don't you worry.
Okay, I'm in.
Caroline and Stephen, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem.
No worries. Thanks for inviting me.
Bye, guys.
Cheers. Nice to meet you,
Bye.
Mara. Cheers,
Nice
Caroline.
to meet you.
And we can pick up.
That was fun.
That is good. Usually we do it towards the end, but it feels quite
I
nice.
won,
in the middle.
though. I won, right? Yeah.
The guest always wins. We have to do it.
Do they really, though? Do they really? I bet they don't.
No,
But
they
I
don't
really,
at all. No.
I really do look at those reviews. Because I find them fascinating. I find them really fascinating because I like with that story that I just told was absolutely true. And I was like, put my book in a bin, say it's rubbish, say you read, like, don't tell me I'm not qualified to write it.
Yeah.
Because like I've done that. I was on a TV show and they said, oh, if you got offered like, $1 million to write about a war thing, I was like, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like literally it's like a failed history. It's like I don't think I even went to class. It's like I wouldn't have a clue. It's like so like, but like TV, film, music, rock and roll, monsters, bitches, and vile people, I've seen them all. So like, let me loose and I will write it. So don't tell me I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, but I was kind and I was polite and it paid dividends.
Absolutely. There you go. And she might buy the second one.
She has done. She has done.
Yeah, there you go. That's really nice.
I know. She's lovely, actually. She was just having a bad day.
Some people need redemption.
Exactly.
Has a 1-star review ever made you think about writing differently?
Only to that person. It's like, so literally, it's to like, why I want, like, no, it hasn't, because whenever I've read a 1-star review, apart from the only 1-star reviews of mine are valid are the 1-star reviews on my first book, The Thunder Girls, because, as I said, my original publisher was absolutely insistent on messing about with my book so much. They had a real issue with the fact that I write fast-paced novels that when you open, you'll know this now, you're reading my book, you just turn the pages and it doesn't stop, does it?
Yeah,
it's 1,000,000 miles an hour from the get-go, and then it just gets faster and faster and faster. And they said to me, you have to build it up, you have to let the audience come with you. I'm like, no, there is no foreplay with my books. We're straight at it. Right. And then we keep going until it explodes. Then we explode again and again. And just when you think it's over, we become multiple. It's like, so like, that's what we do. So they slowed the first half of that book down. And all the 1-star reviews say gave up because it was too slow. And then all the other 5 stars say first half was really slow, but the second half was amazing. So those reviews I've always found were fair, but unfair to me because that's not what I wanted. So that did actually influence my writing because I vowed I would never do it again, and I never have. And since then, with a publisher, obviously I have an editor and I do listen to my editor, but nobody has ever tried to change my pace again. And I really appreciated that, particularly Phoebe and Laura, head of Zeus. Not one person said to me, you need to slow this down. Not one. So I really don't. Let's be honest and rub a little bit of noses there. Book number 1 didn't make a lot of money for them. The other books made millions for everyone else. Ha ha.
And with your you've sort of touched on book 3, and we love exclusives on this podcast, so are you able to tell us anything about it?
I can, yes. So we're in a trilogy. God, who'd have ever thought I'd be in a trilogy? I don't know what the word is for 4, but it looks like it's going to be more than a trilogy.
All right.
It's a quadruply. I don't know. So basically, we're on the verge. I've got a big meeting tomorrow with a big streaming service about turning them into television series. So obviously, then they want more and more and more stories.
Yeah.
But so it goes ruthless women, guilty women, vengeful women. And what's really clever about my books, as in clever about the books, not clever about me, is that they all follow on from each other exactly 8 weeks from the start. And they also only last 4 months. It's a very specific style that I have never seen in anybody else. Nobody taught it me. It's just my natural way. I write in 4-month blocks. So literally, so the speed never stops. So generally you start in July and you end at Christmas, or you open in February and you end in the summer. And so the pace is always really, really fast. And so I know that you haven't got to the end of Guilty Women yet, but it ends on a massive cliffhanger. And when it went to print, I was like, they're never going to let me end this on this cliffhanger, because it's essentially like a Hugh shot JR type thing. I was like, because I haven't got a book deal for the third book because I didn't sign a third book deal. Once bitten, twice shy after what happened to me the first time. I've always signed single book deals at a time now. And I was like, they're never going to let me go to print. Because, I mean, this book ends with no ending, right? So, and they sent it to print. And I was like, my agent was like, yeah, you're not going anywhere. They're pretty confident. So you absolutely, when you get to book 3, you'll be like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened to them? And what I'm also loving is the fact that I'm having the power to change things. Now I have to go back through the arcs and work out what's feasible. Can I change a plot line? Can I stand it up? Can I make it work? And I never had a formal education, left school at 16, didn't do well in anything, never went to a training course, never went to a literary course, never went to a writing class. I've written for Fleet Street, I've written for magazines all over the world, I've written columns that have been read by millions of people, literally all with dyslexia and just my own style of writing. My punctuation's worse than the dogs. My spelling is literally like the stuff of nightmares. And my dyslexia means that my letters come out backwards. But somehow, when my fingers touch a keyboard, all that disappears. So it comes out of me into a keyboard, and I can write 10,000 words a day. Wow. I can write a book in 8 weeks.
Goodness,
yeah, I'm a writing weirdo.
And is there a time of the day you prefer to write, or are you fairly flexible?
I write late. So I write late. I do the late shift. I have a really weird combination. I drink loads of Coca-Cola to get me like really hyped up, and eat loads of Haribos. And then I just get sort of like really edgy. And then I just sort of like go off on a tangent. I write for like 3 hours. I exhaust myself. I have a nap. I write again. And then I have a nap. And then I write again. This goes on for about 8 weeks. And then when I've got that first draft, I generally purge write. And then I will probably spend 4 months editing that book. But I will write one. I mean, I wrote The Thunderguards, which was 90,000 words. I wrote it in a week.
That's me.
I wrote for 18 hours a day.
Just because you were so excited about the story?
What happens to me is, because I'm not a conventional writer, because I've got no training, because I don't know how you're supposed to do it. I just do it the way that I know how to do it. And that is, I'm a very practical person. Story fills my head and it just has to come out. So, and I used to be a ghostwriter. Again, a job I got without any qualifications, but a very, very unusual career. And when you're ghostwriting, you really have to get the skill of taking on somebody else's voice. And that's honed the characters in my books very strong, that they are in control of me. There is a character whose partner dies in one of the books, and I decided to put this character with another character in the second book, and he wouldn't even touch her. No matter what I wrote kissing scenes, love-making scenes. He was not having it. I don't control them; they're in control.
Yeah.
So when I read the books back, even I read them back, going, "Oh my god, what's happened here? What?" It's so weird. So she's like, I feel like Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost. It's just like it's like a trance. So I pray that gift never leaves me, because it is definitely some sort of gift, because I do not labour over my book. I literally just splurge them out, and then I absolutely kill myself on the edit. I edit and edit and edit and edit like there's no tomorrow. And this last book, it was supposed to go to print at Christmas, and over Christmas, literally, it'd been typeset and everything. I just woke up one morning and thought, I'm not happy with it. And I rewrote the entire thing from start to finish. Wow. Contacted my publishers and said, look, I know it's been typeset, but I've rewritten it. They said, look, it's been typeset. These changes don't get made. I said, just do me a favor, promise me, just read this. They read it and they were like, oh my God, this is the book that we wanted. This is funny, because this will bring us back to what I said about large publishers being really PC. The book that we wanted, that we couldn't ask for. I was like, I knew I had it in me. I just didn't know how to get it out. So this last minute rewrite. So so the book went to print really late, but it went to print, as it should have done. And the early reviews for that book are, and anybody who's listening, please do come and let me know. They're even better than the last one. So
Oh, that's amazing. We've got a couple of Twitter questions. One from Laura Van Rensburg, who has a book coming out this month as well.
Okay.
Nobody But Us. Great.
Oh yes, she's amazing. Her, I've got it. I've got it on order. Got Sprayed Edge coming out, so I've had to reorder it, and I'm incredibly jealous of those sprayed edges.
Yeah, they look nice, don't they? And she's
beautiful.
I've met her twice, and she's such a lovely person, and she's asked some very good questions.
Great. What are they?
Number one, so you kind of hinted at this already, but she said, what comes after the trilogy? So you've kind of hinted that there might be a fourth book in this.
Yes, I think so. And then failing that, I'm going to the original book, do a prequel, rewrite the original, and then do a sequel. So there'll be 3 of those. And there are also 2 books that I wrote under a celebrity's name as a ghostwriter, and I recently negotiated the rights of them back. So I'm going to have there are 2 secret books out there that have already been released that I'm going to reissue and finally name and shame that they were mine all along.
Ah, man. And will I mean, we're not asking who they are or anything, but would their version or your version of their version, would they both be out at the same time, or
I don't think they ever read it. I don't think they ever even read it. It's like, so they bombed because they didn't read it. They didn't promote it properly, like literally. So they've been set by their brilliant stories, and they are also another trilogy. So poof, as if by magic, I have a secret set of books that I can bring back. So I'll obviously bring them up to date, but they're great books. They're just celebrities. Listen, no disrespect to the celebrity. We were offered a fortune. You know, it was a fantastic deal, way more than I've ever been paid myself. And you get a great deal because you get 50% of the advance. And it's just amazing that they'll pay a celebrity who never writes a word 10 times what they'll pay an actual real author. So, you know, so we did a severance deal recently because I'm not an agent anymore. And one of the things I put in my package was I want the reversion of rights back. So I got the books back. So yeah, I have. So that's a real weight off my mind because I know that I have these books in my arsenal and they are great books. And when I do release them, I will say, look, please do not criticize the celebrity that release these books because that's showbiz. That's how it was. But now they're a bit like, oh my God, this sounds really, really like pretentious because I don't even know anything about art. But it's like, you know, and they go, it's a lost Picasso. It's like, so I want someone to go, oh, it's a Melanie Blake.
Yeah.
We had no idea this was a Melanie Blake all along. So like there's 2 books out there that exist that are already completed.
Interesting.
So I intend to get those back out there.
Excellent. Well, that's a really great answer to that question. And the second question is, and it might link with these books, but is there a genre that you'd really like to explore that you haven't yet?
God, yeah, absolutely. And I'm finding myself drawn to it really, really, really strongly. And that is the sort of horror shock slasher type genre. I'm leaning towards you'll discover there's like, well, you've already discovered there's murder in what you've read, and or is it murder? And there's like so book 1, Ruthless Women, was body heat. Book 2, Guilty Women, is body count. And I'm kind of really into killing people at the moment. So yes, I really would like to kind of get into that sort of like, I'm feeling I'm that sort of Scream Halloween-y type sort of vibe, and I'm surprised at myself that I'm going there. I mean, I've gone from like girls reuniting sing pop to like people like being dismembered. I mean, I don't know what it means, but maybe I'm growing.
Man, well, I'd read that in a heartbeat. So
it's coming. That title, Vengeful, means a lot.
Sweet. Well, I cannot wait for that.
Thanks for the question.
Great questions. But that's probably our time up, sadly.
Loved it.
Yeah, it's been great. I've really, really enjoyed it. I was a bit nervous about doing it on my own today, but
no, you were more than enough.
I think it's gone all right. So thank you for keeping me right. And for, I mean, Rob Parker, who's one of the other hosts, often talks about honesty in the industry, and I think this has been a real example of someone not afraid to say the truth. And I think it's a really, really important thing. So thank you so much for your insight and for all the interesting things that we've covered tonight. So thank you.
I just hope that it really helps, because I think the thing is that, like, it's not sugar coated. It's really difficult. It's constantly demoralizing, and it's so easy to take it personally when half the time it's not about you. Yeah. It's like, so you just have to have this absolute I'm from a council estate. As we've discussed, I didn't have an education. I'm self-made. I never had any favors. I did everything from living in a squat to doing the works. And, I have a fantastic life, and I've got the power to do what I want to do now. And luckily the success of Ruthless Women has done that. But it took me until I was 40 years old. It's like, and I got offered a lot of, I won't extend your time, but it's a really important thing. When I wrote the play, The Thunder Girls, which was, I'd never done before either. And it broke box office records, before COVID took it down. Everyone offered me lots of initiatives to do spearhead young writers classes, and I said, I don't want to do that, because I'm not a young writer. Like, not be spearheading a second generation voice for people that have had their children, that have had their careers, and are now maybe thinking, okay, maybe there's time for me to get back to those ambitions that I had. And nobody was interested.
Which says a lot, doesn't it?
No one was interested. Nobody was interested in anybody. And I wrote a great article. When I say great, I mean, as in, it was tough what I wrote. It was about why I despised 30 under 30. It's like 30 schmerty. It's like, so 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. There was a story in the papers yesterday about an 85-year-old had a book published. Just write, just do it. It's like, so like, and the most important thing I can say to anybody, and this is really, really, really important, is don't think about it, don't procrastinate about it, don't spend your time planning it, just actually do it. It doesn't matter how it comes out. Once you've finished it, you can tidy it up. But if you never write it, you'll never ever get it published.
Oh, what a great message to end on. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
My pleasure. And make sure everybody picks up a copy of Guilty Women.
Yes.
And come and find me on social media. And if you leave me a 1-star review, I will find you.
And talking about your book, where you're into Scream and Halloween, there is a message that you do not want to get from Melanie Blake. So go and buy the book. Thank you, Melanie. And good night, listeners.
Bye. All right.
This is a tale of the supernatural.
The Tapes, a podcast of the uncanny.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Join me, host Christopher Goldie, and guests as we discuss the best in unsettling television and film.
Who is this? Who is coming?
Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Search for @TheTapesPod, part of the Pod Dojo Network.